All right, welcome. Today we are cracking open the history of one of the original 9 launch titles for the Atari 2600. It's a game that pretty much defined multiplayer on the system, Video Olympics. So let's just dive right into this, because the story behind this one cartridge is honestly one of the most fascinating in all of early video game history. We're about to unravel the secret origin of Video Olympics. And believe it or not, it all starts with a machine that barely had enough memory to even think. That's right. The game that you know for its 50 different ways to play. Pong, soccer, hockey, volleyball, you name it. It didn't start its life as a product for you and me. Nope. It was a simple piece of test code, an engineering tool written just to make sure the console's revolutionary new hardware was actually, working. Now, to really understand why this diagnostic tool was so important, we have to rewind. We got to go back to the creation of the console itself, a super top secret project that they codenamed Stella.
See, back in the mid-70s, Atari was kind of trapped. They were building these amazing machines for the arcade and for the home, but they could only play one game. The second the public got bored of Pong, that expensive box in your living room basically became a paperweight. So they knew the future had to be a programmable system, one with swappable cartridges. But building that on a tight budget, that was a monumental challenge.
And here's the constraint that was just suffocating for the programmers. 128 bytes. And I don't mean kilobytes or megabytes, I mean bytes. To put that in perspective, a single letter of this text takes up 1 byte. There was so little memory that you couldn't even have a screen buffer, which is the bit of memory that normally holds the image you see on screen. So without that screen buffer, programmers had to pull off this legendary act of technical wizardry called racing the beam. It meant the console's tiny brain had to literally draw the picture directly on your TV, line by line, in perfect time with the TV's own electron beam. If you missed a single CPU cycle, the whole picture would just collapse into garbage. It was like trying to paint a masterpiece on a moving train. Just an incredible feat. So, to even make this new hardware possible, management gave the engineers a very strict, non-negotiable mandate. Stella, the new console, had to be able to perfectly play their 2 biggest arcade moneymakers, Tink and Pong. The entire custom chip for graphics and sound, the TIA, it was designed from the ground up specifically around the needs of just those 2 games. Okay, so with the hardware starting to take shape, an electrical engineer named Joe Decuir, who had actually co-designed that TIA chip, was given a new task. Write some code to push all its buttons and see if it actually worked as advertised. So what does he do? He builds a version of Pong just to test the chip's features. Can it draw the paddles? Can it track the ball? Does it know when they hit each other? But his little diagnostic tool worked so well, so efficiently, that you could almost hear the light bulb go on over at Atari management. And that's when Decuir realized, hey, with a microprocessor, he could recreate almost every single bat and ball game Atari had ever made, just by tweaking a few lines of his test code. I mean, this is the level of programming genius we're talking about here. When management finally told him, okay, that's enough, he'd stopped at exactly 50 distinct game variations. And he crammed all of it, all the logic, the graphics, the sound, even the opponent AI, into this minuscule 2-kilobyte ROM. That's just 2,048 bytes of space. It's an absolute masterclass in optimization. Now, to get all 50 of those variations, Decuir had to push the hardware way beyond what it was ever designed for. Remember, that TIA chip was built for 2-player Pong. So to get 4 independent paddles on the screen at once, he used this amazing trick. He drawed 2 of the players on one frame and then the other 2 players on the very next frame, flickering them back and forth so fast that your brain just blends them together into a solid image. It was a complete hack, but it worked. And just like that, it gave us the first true 4-player party game for a home console. And when you look at this table, you can see that Video Olympics wasn't just a random collection of minigames, it was literally a time capsule. It was effectively an entire arcade's worth of Atari's greatest hits from the early 70s. It was emulating the hardwired logic of those massive coin-op machines entirely in software, all on one little cartridge. And get this, even the game's little quirks are historical artifacts. You ever wonder why so many of the timed modes in old Atari games last for exactly 2 minutes and 16 seconds? Well, it's because the original arcade machines used a hardwired 13-bit binary counter to keep time, and 216 was the exact moment that counter ran out of numbers. So Decuir just ported that exact logic right into the software, bringing a piece of the arcade's actual DNA into our living rooms. But Video Olympics wasn't just a technical marvel that was born from a diagnostic tool. No, it was also a very deliberate, very aggressive business strategy. Think about it. This one game was a corporate weapon. The market at the time was flooded with all these dedicated consoles that only played Pong. With Video Olympics, Atari made every single one of them instantly obsolete overnight. It was a calculated move, specifically designed to accelerate the death of that entire first generation of consoles and to crown the Atari VCS as king.
And to get that market domination, Atari struck a huge deal with the retail giant Sears. Now, Sears had massive brand recognition with the name Pong, so for their exclusive Telegames line of products, they just rebranded the cartridge to Pong Sports. It's the exact same game, the exact same code, just a different label for a different store. So today, the legacy of this game is really twofold. It's remembered as a technical pioneer of multiplayer gaming, but it's also become this surprisingly complex and really fascinating collector's item.
See, because it was in production for over a decade, the game went through multiple makeovers. For the serious Atari collectors out there, tracking down a complete set means finding all these different label variations, from that original, super minimalist text label in '77 all the way to the flashy red label from the Atari Junior era in the late '80s. And that Sears partnership? Well, it created a collector's dream. Because the Pong Sports version was only sold at Sears, its distribution was way smaller than Atari's global reach, and that makes it significantly rarer today. A loose Atari cart is pretty common, but that Sears variant, it's worth more than double on the collector's market. Now, there's also this persistent myth that you will find all over the internet when you look up this game. It's this story about a hidden credit, a secret little Easter egg for one of gaming's most important female developers. Yeah, that story, it's just not true. This is a perfect example of how easily history can get scrambled and misattributed online. While it's a fantastic story, it's completely false. So let's just break down the hard facts. Joe Decuir wrote every single line of Video Olympics, and it launched in September of 1977. The incredible Carol Shaw, a true pioneer who gave us classics like River Raid, she didn't even start working at Atari until almost a full year later, in August of '78. It's just a simple case of the legacies of two iconic developers getting accidentally tangled up over the years. And it all leaves you wondering, right? Video Olympics wasn't born from some grand artistic vision for a new game. It was born from the simple need to test a chip. It just makes you ask, what other masterpieces, what other revolutionary ideas started their lives out as simple, elegant tools? A coder's private key, used to unlock a machine's hidden potential.